Okay, awesome, we're live. So, this is kind of going to be a mix of a tutorial and an opportunity for you to watch live as I figure out how to handle this client project, which basically is a dot animation. So a lot of people have asked me how to do animations in CSS3, sort of advanced animations using CSS, transforms, stuff like that. And I decided that I was just going to go live and use this example here. Now, this is an actual example from a client that I'm working on, but the details have been changed. So this XD file here is what we're going to be working off of, again, to protect the client's privacy. The details of this mockup and its aesthetic have been changed. But what we're going to do is we're going to take this dot right here, and we're going to animate it from this spot down to here. It's going to move down one more, and it's going to land right here. So that's what we're going to do. So we are going to start by building this in HTML and CSS. So essentially what is going to happen, if you have some familiarity with HTML and CSS, that is really going to be helpful. If you don't, try to follow along. I'm going to try to explain as much as I can along the way. So what we are going to do, we're going to jump on in here and create this framework in HTML and CSS. Now, we're going to do it basically in this file here. And the reason we're doing it inside of this file, we're actually going to put it inside of an Elementor site. So it's going to go somewhere else, but I'm just going to pop open Visual Studio Code. You can use any code editor, and we're going to start coding. So I'm going to go ahead and start right off with a div. And I'm going to build the main div. We'll zoom in so you can see it a little closer. We're going to build a main div that is a content container here. So we're going to just call it .progress container. And you can do an ID if you want instead. Doesn't really matter. It'll just change the CSS selectors. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this an unordered list. So we're going to do a UL here. I'm going to put the UL inside the container in case we need to do other things outside the container. And we're going to do our LIs here. So let's type in our data here. All right. So we'll go ahead and save that off and preview it in the browser. Obviously, it's not going to look like anything at this stage. So let's start implementing some stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and just add a new CSS file. Okay. So we're going to create a new file. We're going to save it as animation style.css. Doesn't really matter what we call it because we're going to enqueue it inside of different style sheets later. We're going to do link rel equals style sheet, href equals. And since we're already inside the folder, we don't need to do anything else. So what this does is it just links that style sheet so we can use it. So let's add our first style here. I like to comment my styles as I go along, just to keep it clean and organized. So we're going to grab this background color. And let's call this .progress container. Background color. There we go. All right, so let's refresh that. Absolutely nothing has changed, so we have something wrong. So one of the things that I find really helpful to utilize if you are encountering something like this, where your CSS is not working, first off, I don't know that this link rel worked, right? I don't know, in fact, I know why it didn't work, so I didn't put .css here. But an easy way to figure that out, you can always go to inspect, and then you can jump in your head here and check out your path. So you hit open a new tab, and that doesn't work at all. So if we change this to be .css, that should start working. And good, it does work. So let's also add a max width to that. So I'm not sure how big this container is, but let's just take a look. It's like 1600 pixels wide. That's actually pretty wide. I don't think it's going to need to be that wide on the actual website. I've been trying to use rem a little more too for spacing. Since it's a little bit more accessible. So let's go ahead and do 40 rem, and that should be good. We're also going to do a padding. Let's do padding of like 2 rem. And border radius of 1 rem probably is fine. Let's see. That might be a little much. We'll do 0.75. There we go. So now we've got our nice little box. So the next thing we are going to do, we will jump in and we'll take that dot progress container. And what we actually want to do is we want to make these look like they actually do in fact look. So there's a couple things we're going to have to do here. We want to make these little dots, and we also want to make the text look like the text. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to make the dots, the empty dots, as their own element, right? So we'll do that first, and then we're going to make the line as an element, and we'll make this full dot as an element, and we'll have that one animate. So here we go. So, and we're going to have to pretty much define the heights of everything so that we are able to render the animation reliably. So what we'll do, let's go ahead and jump in this first one, and we'll add a div, and we'll do div class dot progress dot, and basically that is going to be an empty div that is our dot. Okay, good. So that's going to change our li a bit. There we go. I'm adding a span tag here so that we can target this if we want to later. And then I'm just going to copy this, and we're going to go ahead and add this one here. Copy this, add the third one. So now we have all three of those set up with the HTML that we want. Good. So let's jump in to our style sheet here, and we're going to do dot progress dot. And we'll do width, let's say, sure, 1.5 rem. You'll notice that I'm getting suggestions here. That's an AI GitHub Copilot. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It is pretty good. It did take me about 6 months to train it to be useful for my purposes, because it had to learn how I code. It just takes an average of GitHub code, and that's not always what I want. So let's actually do 1.8 RAM solid. Yeah, that looks good. So now obviously we need to make this, let's actually add an li here for a little bit more specificity. We'll do dot progress container li span. And actually we'll just do the direct child span. So when you use this, it means directly underneath. So it's going to grab the span directly underneath. I like to do that just for a little more specificity, just in case the markup gets changed and we have spans inside those spans or anything like that. So we'll just do that. So what we actually will do, I'm going to set the color up top here. So the general color is set to this white. Let's actually grab this color though, because that's the color we really want it to be. We want it to be this kind of teal color according to the spec. So there we go. Yep, that's good. And then we don't really need to do anything with this then, because what we'll do is we'll just target the li and we'll change the font size there. So what we'll do is we'll just do font family, and let's just use something to work with for now. I'm not necessarily going to enqueue this font properly, but we'll just do Montserrat just because we want it to look good while we're developing it. And font size of 1.5 rem will probably be fine, but we'll take a look. Yeah, that's not too bad. That looks pretty close to the spec. Now you'll also notice that on that spec we have a text transform uppercase. So there we go. Good. Okay, cool. So now we need this to actually look a little bit more like it's going to look. So what we're going to do is dot progress container, and we'll go after the UL. And so what we're going to do is list style none, right? And that removes the bullet points. We're also going to do margin 0 and padding 0 because we want to reset the margin and padding on that, because we'll add the margin and padding somewhere else. The other thing we want to do is these little dot progress dots. We actually want there to be a border radius so that they are round. So that's a great way to make a circle. You just make a square and then add a border radius. So now we actually want these to properly display. So what we're going to do, I'm going to use CSS Grid. If you're not familiar with CSS Grid, It's similar to Flex. If you're not familiar with CSS Flex, you should learn about it. It's fantastic. So what we're going to do is display grid, and then we're going to do grid template columns. So display grid means that we're going to start using grid properties, and grid template columns means we're going to define the columns that show up for this element. So this element, sub-elements, are going to be broken into columns, okay? It's really very simple. Now what I'm going to do is max content 1FR. So basically I'm going to do, the first column is going to be the maximum width of the content, and then 1FR just means one frame. Now I'm also going to do gap to rem. Now the gap is going to be the amount of space obviously between the columns. Ta-da! And it's great. Check that out. It works immediately. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to determine an actual height for this, and that's going to be important because we're going to animate that height, right? So what we're going to do is we know that our elements here have a font size of 1.5 rem. We actually want to do a line height of 1 em, and that means the line height is not going to be affected by the height of the the height of the text element's line height, right? So it's going to be exactly the same as 1.5 rem. If we did 1.2 em or 1.5 em, it would add space to the bottom. So we're also going to do align items center because we want to make sure that vertically the elements are centered, okay? So we know that the height on these things is basically going to be roughly, let's see here. Right now, it's based on the height of the largest element, which is, both of these are 1.5 rem. Our text is 1.5 rem, and our little dots are 1.5 rem. I am going to verify that that's really the size that I want, because we're committing to this pretty hard. So, yeah, that should be fine. And if we want to change it, we certainly can do that. It's just easier to change it at this stage. So, we're going to try something to change the height, and we're going to see how it works. We're going to do... So the easiest way is probably going to be not last child. So what I'm doing here is I'm selecting all of the LIs that are not the last child LI, and I'm going to do a margin bottom of 1 rem, okay? So that's going to put a space in between each of these, because you'll see that each of these LIs basically gets a space beneath it, except for the last one. Right? So LI not last child basically says not the last child of the parent element. So that matches this selector. So there we go. That should actually be a little bit bigger based on the spec. So we're just going to do 2 rem. And I think the text maybe should be a little bigger too. So let's take everything up to 2 rem. Let's try the text being 2 rem. That's a little big. I actually think 1.75 rem is going to be perfect. So, we're experimenting a little bit as we go. 1.75, that feels better. That feels more like the spec. Now, I do think that in order to have that, we're going to want to go to like 3 rem for the spacing in between. No, 2.5 rem. Yep, that's the magic number. Beautiful. The other thing we want to do is we're going to go to our main container, right? And we're going to do padding 2 rem, 5 rem. Because I want a little bit more padding on the sides. So 5 rem seems like a little much, so we'll do 3 rem, and that should be fine. There we go. Awesome. Okay, so that is good. The other thing we're going to do is box sizing border box. That basically means that the sizing of the boxes is going to be determined by the content and by the total width instead of just extrapolating the width of the box for every padding element and every spacing element and all that. It's going to stick to the general border box sizing. Okay, so next up, let's take a look at what we have next. Okay. So let's see, do we have any letter spacing, or is this pretty good? There is a little bit of letter spacing on this. Okay, so on this LI, we're going to do letter spacing 0.2 rem. Okay, and we'll see if that's crazy. That might be way too much. It is way too much. So we'll do 0.05. That's pretty good. I think we can do 0.1. Yep, that's pretty good. Let's do 7.5. Whoa, nope. 0.075. And perfect. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to create a line that goes behind these three dots. So in order to do that, we want to make sure that the dots actually have a background color, because otherwise the line is going to show up, right? So let's go to that dot progress dot, and we'll do background color. And there we go. That's not going to make any change to our file, but it is going to help us get set up. So let's go ahead and we got to figure out how to do this. So what I think we can do is we can just, we're going to do this in the inspector. So sometimes if you need to test things, it's easy to do it in the inspector because you can edit it pretty easily. So we'll focus on the UL, right? We're going to do dot progress. So I'm just going to add a new style here. Dot progress container UL. And then we're going to do before, right? So our before is going to be content, nothing, display, block, position, absolute. Now, if you do something that's position absolute, you need to also take your parent container and make sure to set it to relative. It's going to define, so absolutely position elements are going to define themselves relative to the closest ancestral relative container. So in this case, we need to make sure that the element that they're defining their spacing to is the relative container above it. So that's going to be the UL. So we're going to do display relative, or position relative, okay? And then basically what we're going to do there on this UL before, we're going to do a background color. So background color, there we go. We're going to do a width. We're going to do a height of 100%. As you can see, ta-da, there it is. And now we're going to do some positioning. So we'll do top 0. And we're going to do left. This is where it gets fun. So we're going to do left 1 rem, right? So we made that, what do we make that as? 1.75 rem. So we're going to do 1.75 divided by 2. All right, that's a decimal, so 0.875. So we're actually going to take that and make the left 0.875 rem, and that will put it right in the middle. So that's good. Doesn't quite look like it's right in the middle, so let's try 0.9 rem. And that looks pretty good. That's close enough. There we go. So now let's grab this. So we want to grab that and put it into our CSS file. And refresh, and that does look good. Now our dot progress dots, you'll notice that they need to have a z-index value, right? So that they're displaying over top of that line. So what we're going to do is we're going to give them a z-index. So we'll give them a z-index of 1. And 1 is fine. Like that's, let's see, maybe not. Okay, let's do 10. Now, really, when you do this, you should map out like what your z-index values are going to be for all of this. Oops, I was modifying the wrong class. So we need to actually go to the dot progress dot. We're going to do z-index 10. There we go. All right. Okay. So this is looking really good. We've got this working nicely. So now what we need to do, we actually need to add an element that is going to be our little filled in dot element here. Okay. So I don't just want to place it inside of these dots. We actually want it to slide along the track here, right? So that's a little tricky, but we're gonna do it. So what we're gonna do is very interesting. So our very first LI. Inside the UL there, because that's going to be the container with which we're defining everything by, we're going to do an LI that is totally different. dot progress. Actually, we're gonna slightly break convention. We'll do a div here. That'll be fine. It may not be ideal, but we'll do dot progress highlight. Okay, and dot progress highlight is going to be our highlighted dot. So dot progress highlight is going to have a lot of similarities to our dot progress dot, right? So dot progress highlight is going to have a width, the same height, the same border radius. It's going to have the same border, but the background color is going to be different, right? So the background color is actually going to be the lighter color, okay? So we'll make it a little more specific by adding our parent class here. And let's see. Okay, as you can see, there it is. The only problem is it's really like just not sitting where we need it to sit. So what we can do is the same thing we've been doing. We can do position absolute and then top 0, left 0. Woo! Now, why is that not working? Because we don't have a z-index on it. So let's do z-index 20 so it sits above our dot progress dots. And we have filled our dot in. Fantastic. Okay, so now it's time to make it move. So this is the moment we've all been waiting for now that we've built all of our HTML and CSS and stuff, which is great. So what we're going to do is we are going to just take a look. All right, so I'm going to move this, we'll give this an animation, okay? Animation dot progress, and let's just say, how long should we have it work? So we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that feels about right. So like 15 seconds. And we'll do dot progress, 15 seconds ease. So as you might anticipate, we're going to do at keyframes. So at keyframes is really easy to use. So basically, it's a great way to just utilize keyframe animation. So what we're actually going to do, this is a nice little start that Copilot has given me. It's not quite what we want. So what we're actually going to do is dot keyframe dot. Is that what I call it? Nope, I call it dot progress is going to be our animation name. So I'm defining the keyframes for the animation name, right? So we know it's going to be 15 seconds. So what we want to do is we want to start out at 0%. We actually want to do translate. Now, it's going to be the z-axis. So we'll do translate z of 0. And let's just put a translate z. So translate z is going to translate or move the object across the z-axis. So let's just try this real quick and see what happens here. Absolutely nothing, so I'm clearly doing something wrong. All right. Translate. Somehow, this animation is not taking effect at all. Let's see here. Ah, yes. Okay, so translate is actually a transform property. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do translate z like this. We're going to do 100%. Remembering how this works. There we go. Translate z. Let's say 5 rem, 15 rem, fine. I'll take whatever. Negative 15 rem? As you can see, I'm having no luck with this. Okay, so let's try pixels. Does that work? It doesn't work. Let's try top 5 rem. Ah, there we go. Okay, so a better way to animate this, and the only way we can animate this under these specific circumstances is by animating the top property. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 0 to 15 rem. So let's go watch this animate. Awesome. So it crosses all the keyframes there until it gets to the end. It actually gets past the end. So we need to figure out how many rems this all is. And you could go do the math on it if you wanted. I am also fine to just not do the math and figure it out myself. So what we're actually going to do here is we're going to do animation fill mode forwards and animation iteration count 1. Okay, so what that does is animation fill mode forwards is going to make sure that you start out with the first frame and you end on the last frame, and the first frame is what it starts on and the last frame is what it ends on and stays on. That's what animation fill mode forward does. You could also do it the opposite way. You could do backwards, and animation fill mode would go backwards and do it the other way. So let's just take a look at what we would have to get this at to what we would have to get our top value at. So 10 rem, not quite. So it's pretty much, is it 9 rem exactly? 9.5 rem, 9.25 rem, 9.1 rem. Yeah, pretty much 9.1 rem is pretty much where it ends. So we're going to do 9.1 rem, right? And as you can see, it's going to go from the top all the way to the bottom. Now, we really don't want it to operate like this, right? You see how it's starting slow, ending slow, and then it's kind of fast in the middle? So that's because we did our animation type. Let's do linear instead. That way it's not going to do that fade. And let's actually just do 5 seconds because that's going to be easier for us to see. 2, 3, 4, 5. So linear will just make it move in a linear fashion. Ease is going to try to ease the start and end of the animation to make it more smooth. But yeah, linear is perfectly good. All right, so we're going to go ahead next, and what we need to do is define our midpoints to this, right? So what we actually want to do is we want to identify the points where it starts and stops, right? So what we're going to do, we will go to, let's just say 20%, right? And at 20%, let's do a top of 0 as well. And then we'll start moving it at 21%, okay? From 0 to 20, we'll do a top of 0, okay? And sometimes I find it easier to do the keyframes this way if I'm only animating one property at a time. That way it's just easier to see the code that you're working on. All right, so 0 to 20%. And then from 20 to 40%, we're going to do top of, so it's going to be half of 9.1. So we'll do about like 5 rem. 4.8 and test it. Actually, I'm just going to test this right here. All right. So you can add important to test things like this. So we're going to do 5 rem. And yep, it's not quite. So 4.8, 4.5, 4.4. 4.5 is pretty much exactly right. Might be a little less than that. 4.55 seems to be the ticket. That's fine. Awesome. Okay, so 40% we're going to do top 4.55. So let me comment this. We're going to do first stage. So we'll do first dot filled. Then we'll do doing PHP comments by accident. Second dot filled. We'll do third dot filled. So what we want to do is basically divide this up into 3 sections. So it's really going to be about like 33% and 66%. where it's going to stay at that 4.55. Believe that's correct. We'll try it. Not quite. I think I was right earlier. Let's see here. This is one of those things where you actually have to do math. So I got it from 0 to 20%, then I'm really segmenting it into 20% sections. So what I want to do is not do that. I want to segment it into... So our first segment is going to be filled at the start. Our second segment is going to be moving. Our third segment is going to be the middle. Our fourth segment is going to be moving. And our fifth segment is going to be, our fifth segment is going to be stationary at the last one. So basically, we got to think about this real quick. So it's, really I was right to start with. It's going to be 20%. Okay, great. So 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. And then this will have to be 80. Yeah, so I was actually exactly right when I first started doing it. My subconscious was correct, but I doubted myself. Here we go. Okay, great. So now it stays, and now it stays. Fantastic. All right. So I love that. I think that's great. The only problem that I really have with it is that the animation is a little fast. So obviously we can slow that down pretty easily. All we have to do is change this from 5 to 10. And let's just see if that looks a little better. That's good. I think that what I would say there is we actually want it to stay a little bit longer and change a little bit faster. So that's pretty easy to do. We'll just change this to 30 and 70, and then I'll stay a little bit longer, and then I'll move a little bit faster, and it'll be consistent on both ends. Great. All right. So that is correctly animated. And I'm pretty happy with that. The only thing I want to change now, I want to also make these do something, right? Because I don't love that the dot just changes and the text doesn't indicate that we're on a different one. So let's go ahead and do this. We're also going to add something else to these. So what we'll do is we'll write a little bit of JavaScript to handle the rest, okay? So what we'll do here is on each of the dot elements, we're going to add index equals, and then we'll add a number to that index. Index equals, then we'll add a number. Oh, okay. So that one's going to get an index. That one's going to get an index. All right, so now what we'll do is we're going to make each of these dots show an active class. So what we'll do is li class equals dot progress active, okay? So then we'll go to the li, our li element here, and we're going to do opacity 0.5, and on this one we'll do opacity 0.5, and then we'll do transition. Let's just do all 0.4 SEs. Cool. And then this one we will add the class of .progressActive. There we go, and we'll make this an opacity of 1. Okay. So as you can see, only the first one is highlighted right now. So by the time the dot gets to the second one, we want that one to be highlighted and then the next one, right? And it's going to be a little easier to write some JavaScript to handle moving the class than it is to, create the animation based on that. So what we will do is we're going to add a master class up here. and add dot animation active, okay? And that's important for a couple reasons. So I am going to connect this to waypoints, which means that when you scroll down to it, it's going to activate, okay? Now, you'll notice something here. You see how our empty dots don't look quite right? So what we're actually going to want to do is control the span's opacity instead. So there we go. And then we'll move the transition over there too. Cool. All right. So now, like this. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So next up, what we'll do. Couple different ways we can do this. Like I said, we can use the JavaScript way. I don't know that we need to do JavaScript with this though. So let's just do this. Let's go ahead and add keyframes for each of these. Well, it'll be easier to move the active class using JavaScript. That'll be fine. All right, so watch this. We're gonna use this AI here and see if it can write the JavaScript for us, and then we'll explain what it does. So I wanted to write a document ready for me here. There we go. Okay. And it always adds something else, even if I just wanted to write a document ready. I don't need that console log there. I just wanted it to write a document ready. All right, cool. So now let's go ahead and say on the li element, every 5 seconds, move the highlight to the next li element. All right, let's see if we can do this. Okay, that's pretty good. So what it's doing, not bad, not bad. We're going to do for each function index. So set the timeout for 5,000. Okay, great. And then add class. So it adds the class to the next one and removes the class from previous ones. Oh, I see. It's also adding a .progress complete class. That's not bad to show which one's been completed. So let's just see how it goes. We'll see if it works. No. Let's see if our console log is having an issue. Yes, it is. Okay. And it's probably because we haven't loaded jQuery on here, or JavaScript is just not activating or something. All right, let's see here. Sure, we'll take that. We'll add jQuery. All right, so that did work, but the timing is off. So that's great. That's a best case scenario, kind of. So we'll really, it just needs to go a little faster, so let's try 4,000. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, not quite. So let's do 3,000 and see how that goes. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's a little bit too fast, so we'll do 3,500, and that should probably do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, not bad, not bad. It's not exactly perfect. It's pretty close. Let's try like 3,400, and I think I see why, but that's a pretty minor problem and probably not worth fixing. So 3,300 and One more try, one more try. Boom, not bad. Boom, not bad. All right, very nice. So the only thing left to do is worry about responsiveness. So let's just define our viewport. There we go. So we make sure that it shows up normally. Now that is going to totally jack up our dots, as you can see. So at this size, our dots don't work at all because the sizing is all off, right? So what we're going to do is basically this dot progress li, we're going to do a height of 1.5 rem, okay? So it's always going to have that height of 1.5 rem on this size. So we'll do at media screen and max width 800 pixels. Doesn't have to be exactly that size, but let's go ahead and do height. What was it? 1.5 rem? Yeah. Okay. So now our problem is that the text is too big, right? So we're gonna go into the size of this, and we're gonna just kill it, knock it down a little bit. That's not too bad. That might actually almost fix our problem. Let's see here. We are going to be wrapping onto the second line with this. There's just nothing we can do about that. So really what we want to do, did we identify 1.75? That's our problem, yeah. So really this is going to be 1.75. And all right, here we go. Great. Awesome. Pretty close, not quite. Even less. All right, so let's look at what happened to that dot there. So it's really a problem with the height of this. So what is the height of our dot progress dot? So let's look at that. So our dot progress dot is 1.75 rem. Height of this is going to be 1.75 rem. So we have a problem here. So let's try a min height of 1.75 rem. Try a min height of 2 rem. Somehow, oh, I see why. Box sizing, border box. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to fix everything. We're going to say everything inside the dot progress container is going to have box sizing, border box. That is actually going to change our animation a little bit. Our animation is going to be wrong. That is why our math wasn't adding up, because our math was wrong because it was adding borders into sizes, right? So our sizes were getting affected by borders, and that's why all our math was weird. So fun things like that to find out at the end of a project, but that's how the cookie crumbles. So okay, let's go ahead and look at our before element that creates our line. That's going to be 0.75, which mathematically makes so much more sense. So that's great. Okay, and now let's do, just to be safe, let's do a height of like 95% on that. And then what we should be able to do is do a top of 5%, and that will most likely fix any overcorrection issues we have. Yeah, there you go. Great. Okay, so let's go back to the main size and try to correct this. Okay, so we're gonna go in here to our dot, and our dot is gonna be off a little bit everywhere, right? So let's actually make this 90, because otherwise it's gonna stick out 5% beyond the bottom, and you can't see it, but it bothers me. So let's just guess. Let's say 4 rem, and if each of these is, so let's do the math. We've got 1.75 rem, right, for the height of this one, this one, this one. So we're gonna do the math. 1.75 times 3 is 5.25. And then in between each of them, we've got 2.5. So plus 2.5 plus 2.5. So in other words, plus just another 5. So it's going to be 10.25. So does that sound right? Not sure. If it doesn't work the first try, we're just going to go back to doing it the previous way we had done it. Because it seems like it actually should be less and not more. Yeah, totally wrong. Overshot by a lot. So let's do 8.25 and try it. We'll do 3.75 and try it here. 3.75 and 8.25 and testing and run. No, not at all. And almost. Okay, so let's grab that dot and let's figure out where it needs to be. So there's our dot, highlight, dot. We'll do top 4.5 rem, important. Pardon me. All right. Is it going to be just a nice clean 4.25 rem? Yes, it is. All right, 4.25 rem. Great. Okay. And then that last one, say 8.5 perhaps? 8.5, absolutely. All right, great. Let's watch that happen. Boom. Boom. Yep, that's great. All right, so let's look at the mobile size. We'll just pop this over to the left so we can see it. Mobile size on this, and all right, so let's try it. Boom, dead on. Boom, dead on. And that's our animation. Cool. Well, thanks for joining the stream. I will leave this video and the code on the final YouTube video. And thanks, everyone, for being here.